Pete Carroll's personality and energy are infectious throughout the entire organization. That goes for players and other coaches. Plus, longtime NFL insider talks worst to first. That plus more on Thursday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for June 5th, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. We definitely appreciate you. If you're catching the show wherever you find your favorite podcast, or you're checking us out by way of the YouTube page, you know we appreciate both. Show grows each and every day because of your consistent support and the great job that my man Ari does behind the scenes, making sure we look good and sound good each and every day on the YouTube page. Takes a lot of pride in the work that he does, and if it wasn't for him, we would have no YouTube page. So big ups to Ari. Shout him out. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And if you want to be a part of the show, as many of you do, we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line at 707-654-4693. As we close out the show today, we'll hear from you. A lot of great calls, a lot of great texts, and a lot of it has to do with the mental health conversation that we were having on Tuesday's show. And the thing about it is, and I talked about it on Tuesday, that if one person was affected by the show, if one person was affected in a positive way, then it was well worth it, right? Sometimes those type of shows, everyone doesn't want to hear it, and that's okay. That's your choice, right? You have options, and we appreciate that. But as I stated on Tuesday, if one person took something away from that positively, and got a good sense of themselves or understanding, or maybe a sense of relief as well, whatever the case may be, however that affected you in a positive way, it was well worth it. Well, after the past few days, getting all the calls, texts, tweets, whatever the case may be, I realized it affected a lot of people in a great way. And I'm so appreciative of that. And that, again, makes it well worth it. It makes it worth, the price of admission to come here each and every day and knock out the show and have a lot of fun speaking with Raider Nation on this platform. So you'll hear from you. Calls, texts, Raider Nation, sound off in segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast at 707-654-4693. Segment number 2, it's funny, we were talking about worst to first on Wednesday's show, and I was talking about how difficult it is for teams to do that. And I know that Washington was one game away from the Super Bowl a year ago. We know the Houston Texans a couple seasons ago, C.J. Stroud's rookie year, made it a couple rounds deep into the playoffs. And so impossible? No. Very difficult? Yes. So David Hellman from FoxSports.com, he was going to be a guest and was a guest on my radio show on Wednesday. I originally had him booked to talk about Geno Smith, the conversation and the piece that he had put out that we talked about here on the show when he was talking about the supporting cast, and he had the Raiders ranked at 21st. But it's funny, before the show actually got underway on Wednesday, my man Ari brought up an article that David Hellman put out about the 18 teams that did not make the postseason in 2024 and how he felt they had their shots at making the postseason in 2025, like where he thought their shot would come in. It was so funny because it really ties in with the conversation that we were having here on the podcast on Wednesday's show. So, of course, we focus in on that for the majority when it comes to the conversation with David Hellman from my radio show. So we'll let you hear what he had to say. First of all, I'll read to you what he had to say on FoxSports.com, and then a couple minutes of what he had to say in the radio interview. Not the whole thing, but just a couple minutes of it, just to talk about the Raiders, Geno Smith, and their case to go from being the 4th place team in the AFC West to potentially making a playoff run. So that'll be in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Here in segment number 1, just news and notes of the day, and it really has to do with Wednesday's OTAs. We'll jump right into that after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, and that's FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So as far as OTAs go, just about done, right? Today is the last day. The media is not allowed at the OTAs today. So on Wednesday, we had that opportunity. Next week, we'll have mandatory minicamp June 10th through 12th, and then it's done. Done for the summer, and they'll go on vacation at the end of July. Everyone will meet back at the Intermountain Health Performance Center, and training camp will be on. So the guys that we were able to talk to following practice on Wednesday, defensive coordinator Patrick Graham, linebacker Landon Roberts, safety Jeremy Chin, and center Jackson Powers-Johnson, JPJ. And I'll tell you what, man, it's so funny. This energy that is generated from Pete Carroll is just everywhere, right? From the PR guys, from, the guys at the security gate when you roll up, right? I mean, just the whole building is electric right now. A lot of it has to do with the youth that is in the building, but a lot of it has to do with Pete Carroll and what he brings to the table. There's actually videos floating around social media right now while Thayer Munford was going through stretches. Pete Carroll, with his receiver gloves or DB gloves or whatever you want to call them, jumps on him while he's on the ground stretching, and basically it looked like a WWE move, like he was trying to pin him for a 3 count. Now, he only got him to about 1, and Thayer Munford was able to kick out, but it was just so funny. Those are the type of things that he does. Jackson Powers Johnson told us after practice that there's basketball hoops all over the facility. Like all over the facility, he's out there shooting hoops, right? Guys are talking about you can't come to work and have a bad day because Pete Carroll never has a bad day. So if that dude's not having a bad day, how in the hell do you have a bad day, right? I mean, so it's so infectious. And again, even talking to coaches, they're all saying the same thing, that Pete Carroll's energy is what is driving this whole program. And that's what we heard about his time in Seattle from players that we talked to, people that cover the team, folks that know Pete personally. Like, that's all we ever heard of was energy, 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 compete, compete, compete. And that has fully taken over the Raiders facility, which is a great thing. I mentioned on Wednesday's show that, there's a couple questions that I wanted to make sure that Patrick Graham was asked. And, if he said anything good, we bring it to the table. So there's a couple sound bites that I want you to hear from defensive coordinator Patrick Graham. And the first one is just, how are things going with him and Coach Carroll? As Patrick Graham, remember, he was the one guy that we all thought was probably going to be the fall guy and end up getting fired. Remember when he was on the sideline as the defensive coordinator? Then he got moved up to the booth. Everyone's like, oh, yep, that's the first sign. He's on his way out. I know that's what I thought. And ends up, he's the one that's the last man standing, right? I mean, he was there with Josh McDaniels. He was there with Antonio Pierce. Now he's there with Pete Carroll. So how are things going now that he's working with Coach Carroll?
Anytime you get a chance to work with someone with that experience, that level of success, I couldn't be happier with the experience going on right now, just in terms of being able to bounce ideas off of them, hear different ways of doing things. It's been real beneficial for my growth, if I'm being selfish, which has been something really good and positive for me. And then, again, the track record, why wouldn't you listen? You got to listen. And it's been great. It's been great.
Patrick Graham talking about being a sponge, soaking it up. Good for his growth if he's being selfish. And the track record of Pete Carroll makes you listen. And that's what makes you feel good about the process that they're going through, because there is a proof of concept. There is a track record there. That's the one thing that I've been able to hang my hat on and feel good about the direction this team is going, is because there's proof of concept. There's already a great example, multiple examples in front of us that says, this is how you do it, and this is how you succeed. This is what it takes to get it done, and this is how we're going to have to do it. And you can't say, well, it's a good theory, it sounds good, but I've never seen it come through. No, we have, so we know that it's a possibility. Then I asked him a question about Coach Carroll, that experience, and the philosophies that, will those philosophies that Coach Carroll has given him, with everything that he already knows and all the knowledge that he has when it comes to being a defensive coordinator, does that allow him to get a little bit more creative, maybe even a little exotic? You'll hear the question and Patrick Graham's answer right here. Check it out.
Coach, you mentioned kind of learning from Coach and seeing his philosophies. Does this help you get a little bit even more creative defensively and be able to call a little bit more, maybe get a little more exotic?
You got to look at my career. I've been blessed just with the people I've been able to work with, whether it's from Josh to AP, working with Flo, working with Coach Belichick, Spags. I got a lot of football up in this brain. Now, I can't pour all that out to these guys in terms of all that scheme, but, then on top of that, you put Pete Carroll, and, a football junkie who doesn't have any hobbies, I couldn't ask for more.
So you hear Patrick Graham go through all the coaches that he's worked with and was able to soak up a lot of knowledge, and clearly he's blessed. I love the fact that he says he's got a lot of football in that brain, a football junkie with no hobbies, right? It's one of those guys that is always thinking ball, right? Landon Roberts told us when Patrick Graham wakes up, he's thinking ball. When he's watching TV, he's thinking ball. When he's, whatever he's doing, he's thinking ball at all times. That's just what he is. And that's what he said as well, a football junkie with no hobbies. So what is he doing? He's always thinking ball and always trying to get creative. Now, he's not going to unload everything on these guys right away, but it will give him an opportunity to not be so predictable defensively, which is something that a lot of people were concerned about when Pete Carroll came in. Oh, he's going to just run the old cover 3, and you know what that is, and it's the same vanilla defense. Like, it's not going to be that, and it doesn't sound like it's going to be that. And this sounds like this allows Patrick Graham to be more creative defensively. The final soundbite I want you to hear from defensive coordinator Patrick Graham has to do with Darian Porter, third-round pick from Iowa State, the cornerback that I think has an opportunity to do something special his rookie year. He was asked about Darian Porter and what he's seen so far early in OTAs?
Obviously the length, that's a positive right there. The speed, that's all stuff that's documented. The thing that I see the most that sticks out to me is the combination of his effort and his ability to correct mistakes. So when you have a rookie player coming in first time in the NFL, if you could see the effort, him getting on the same page with how we play, our play style, that's a positive there. And then if you can eliminate the repeat mistakes, you're on the way to becoming a dependable football player.
He mentions the physical traits, right? We've talked about that. Speed, size, length, you can't teach that, right? But the effort and ability to correct mistakes, that's huge, right? Someone who's not going to spend a lot of time on the same mistake twice, same mistake 3 times, right? You can't keep making the same mistake. You're going to make mistakes. That's the inevitable. But as long as you're not creating and doing the same thing over and over and making that same mistake, if you're able to make the mistake, learn from it, correct it, and move on, that's going to make you a better player. And he's saying early on, even in the process, even though, remember, it's early June, there's no pads, right? There's no physicality really going on out there. He's able to correct those mistakes. That's a positive for the young man, the rookie, the 3rd-round pick out of Iowa State. And I also just had a couple sound bites that I wanted you to hear real quick from Landon Roberts. I mentioned him a couple times so far, and that dude by far was the star of the show on Wednesday. Like, from everybody that spoke, he was the guy that stood out the most. He's the free agent linebacker that the Raiders brought in from Pittsburgh. He's a little bit older, multiple time Super Bowl champ, 31 years old, but he's bringing it. And you could tell he's excited to be there. Now, he was on Max Crosby's podcast, the Rush podcast, and he was saying how young he feels, how much energy he feels like he has, how much juice he feels like he has. So I asked him about that. Hey, I heard you on the podcast mentioning that. What is it, that has you feeling that much energy and having that kind of juice? Here's Landon Roberts talking about that.
Max's podcast, that you feel like a young dude, that you got that young energy. What is it that's giving you that young juice?
Oh yeah, I'm still young. I don't play like that. I tell them all the time. They get to running and we doing our little drills. I get out, and they be like, okay. I'm like, yeah, I'm still, don't do that, don't do that, But man, it just, and look at this, man. Look at this facility. Look at Nevada, and I wake up every day. I'm looking at mountains and the sun out, and you're just feeling good, man. I wouldn't say in my other spots, it wasn't, it didn't feel enjoyable to go to work. But when you actually see it, you actually feel it. You come in the building every day, and Pete, 70-something years old, man, and you know what I'm saying? He first one in, last one out. He always pumped, ready to go. Why not match that energy? Who am I to say, man, I'm tired? Pete 70-something. Come on, man. You know what I'm saying? And he bring the juice every day, and it's kind of like, okay. Like, and it just, you ever, at your desk and you just feel energy and you just look back, trying to figure out who that was. You know what I'm saying? You can feel that, and it's a great feeling.
I ain't that old. I love what he said. I ain't that old, but he's got it, and you can see it. And then he said, actually feel it. Right? Follow Coach Carroll's energy. It's something I mentioned at the top of the show. Brings the juice every day. Right? I mean, how is he not going to bring the juice if the old dude in the room is bringing the juice, right? Everyone talks about Pete Carroll's age, but if he's bringing that energy, he's the first one in, last one out. How could you not? Right? I mean, I thought that was a great breakdown and just kind of let you know the mindset of Landon Roberts. And speaking of mindset, I thought this was the most important question that was asked, especially with the response that was given. And this was actually asked by Vinny Bonsignore. You'll hear the question as well, where he's asking about why at this stage of his career, a multiple-time Super Bowl champ, 31 years old, a lot of times back in the day, Raiders would get a free agent that's around 30, 31, 32, whatever the case may be, the back end of his career, and it would just be that. Oh, a guy's there to collect a check, whatever, doesn't really care. He's trying to hold on for dear life. But Landon Roberts is trying to bring it, trying to have that energy. He's trying to show that leadership. Vinny asks him a fantastic question, and the answer was even better. Check it out.
At this stage of your career, why is it important for you to take it that extra level where you want to pull up, like you said, at his house to talk football? Why at this stage of your career are you still invested that deeply?
Because every day matters. I ain't getting no younger. I might be out there moving like I'm young now. I might look, but I ain't getting no younger, and the older you get, the more you start appreciating day in and day out, because I can't get that time back and stuff like that. And I'm in the business of saying, not if I would have did this or if I would have did that. I'm in the business of now, no matter how I take it. And one thing I do know about leadership, just coming up as a young, but leadership is lonely. I promise it's lonely. But at the end of the day, the loneliness ends when you holding that Lombardi at the end of the day. Because everybody you push, including yourself, you strained your family, you strained your coaches, you just always went the extra to just make sure. And people might get tired of you. But one thing I know, when you holding that Lombardi, they're gonna come up to you and say, I appreciate that. And that's all I want. That's all I want. I don't want any fame behind it. I don't want nothing. I want all my teammates to be able to feel that. I want Vegas to be able to feel that and stuff like that. And it starts in practice. And yeah, we get up here and we talk about it with y'all, but we gotta bring it every day to that practice field. And I feel like that's what Pete is doing for us.
I thought that was the best answer ever. And I hope that everyone in the building, I hope everyone in that locker room heard that answer. That's actually an answer that I think more people should hear. Not just athletes. I just think people in general need to hear that. Every day matters, right? The older you get, the more you start appreciating the day in and day out. And I guess the older I get, I'm right there with them. I appreciate the day in and day out, and every day matters. You can't get time back. That is reality. All right, it doesn't matter. I saw Trey Wingo, who used to be at ESPN, 33rdteam.com. He was at a lot of different outlets, been covering the league for a long time. He tweeted out the other day, there's a graveyard full of people who thought they had more time, right? You can't get time back. He doesn't want to be the guy that says, I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done that. And you know what? There's so many people in life that are going to have that feeling or do have that feeling right now, right? I can't get that time back. I wish I could. Man, I shouldn't have wasted it when I had the opportunity. And Landon Roberts said it. It ain't my words, it's his. I just think that was so spot on with what he's saying. Leadership, he mentions, is lonely, but worth it. When that Lombardi's in your hands, that leadership, that rubbing people the wrong way, that people maybe irritated because you're trying too hard, you're working too hard, you're too focused, it's all worth it, and they'll appreciate it as well when they get to the mountaintop, to the top of the mountaintop. And Landon Roberts has been there multiple times. If the Raiders need a leader on defense, they have one in Max Crosby. We know that. There's one right there, right? I'm not going to say that he's going to just fill the role of Robert Spillane, no problem. Like, hey, no big deal that he left. But if there's a guy that's best suited to fill that role, I would say it's Landon Roberts. That, to me, was a fantastic answer. Good question by Vinny, but even better answer from Landon Roberts. That's what I got for you for segment number 1 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Little news and notes reacting to OTAs on Wednesday at the Intermountain Health Performance Center. Coming up in segment number 2, this isn't a team you should be overlooking when you're talking about the Raiders. Those weren't my words. Those were David Hellman's from FoxSports.com. We'll talk about what he had to say, and you'll hear what he has to say about teams that did not make the playoffs in 2024, their chances to do it in 2025. That's coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about the title sponsor of the show, and that is FanDuel. The NBA Finals are here. They get started this evening. Every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win really big. There's a lot of different options starting tonight in Game 1. Pacers, Oklahoma City. A lot of folks think that Oklahoma City is going to run them out the gym. It's going to be a quick series. I'm not signing up for that. I think it's going to go at least 6. Tyrese Halliburton, as my guy Freddie Coleman likes to call him, the butterscotch brother. I think he's going to have something to do with that. And, of course, SGA, the reigning MVP, is going to have something to say for OKC as well. But you can get on all the action. You can have some player props on all those guys and then some more, right? Depending on how you feel these NBA Finals are going. If you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets just like that. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. It's so funny we were talking about worst to first and how difficult it is to, get a team that didn't make the playoffs to the playoffs the next year. And, of course, a lot of people that push back on what I'm saying about 8 wins, 9 wins, whatever, that should be reasonable expectations, don't understand how difficult it really is. But it's funny because, look, we know that it's happened. We've seen it, right? Washington did it. Houston did it. It's just not as easy as it sometimes sounds, especially early in June. You get all the positive vibes around a team, and every team feels positive in June. You think, oh, man, this is the year. The team is definitely going to go there. So we had a really good discussion about it, I thought, on Wednesday's show. Then all of a sudden I ran into this article. My man Ari brought it to my attention on FoxSports.com by David Hellman. New NFL contenders, ranking 18 teams' playoff chances after missing the postseason. Now, that wasn't the reason why I was going to have him on my radio show on Wednesday. He actually had another article, which quarterbacks have the most help, ranking all 32 NFL supporting cast. Remember, we talked about that on this show, and then Ari wanted to bring this one to my attention, and I was like, wow, it ties in so well with what we were talking about on the podcast on Wednesday. So he had the Raiders ranked at 13, and it's 13 out of 18, so it's not really high, but he says this, and I thought this was interesting, then you'll hear from him in his words. Full disclosure, I'm one of those Geno Smith stans. I think he's a good quarterback who's worth building around for at least a few more years. He had a winning record all 3 years he started in Seattle, and now he's stepping into an offense that already has a few quality pieces in Brock Bowers, Ashton Genty, and Jacoby Myers. I'd have the Raiders much higher on this list if they didn't play in such a loaded division. I'll pause right there. That's what I was talking about on Wednesday. The AFC West is nothing to shake a stick at. That is a very difficult division. It very well could be the toughest division in football. We know the AFC North. We know the NFC North. We get that. But the AFC West, again, nothing to shake a stick at. So he goes on to say, it's hard to imagine the division title is up for grabs since the Kansas City Chiefs haven't let it slip nearly a literal decade. And we know the wild card competition should be fierce since the Chargers and Broncos were good enough to snag playoff spots last year. Crazier things have happened, though. This isn't a team you should be overlooking. That's why I said that at the top. This isn't a team you should be overlooking. So, obviously, when David Hellman joined the show on Wednesday, I was like, well, there's multiple things I want to talk to you about, but I really got to focus on this ranking the 18 teams and the Raiders' chances to make the postseason since we were talking about that. So he joined the show. We started off talking about the Commanders and Texans because those are the two most recent, teams that have made it to the postseason after being very bad the year before. The Commanders were picking, number 2 overall, and the Texans a couple seasons ago picked number 2 overall. Matter of fact, number 2 and number 3. Remember, they made the trades for that situation as well. So we started off talking about the Commanders and Texans and how they did it, but my words, it's really, really difficult to make that happen. Check it out.
I mean, you're right, but that's also the beauty of the NFL and I think that's why it's so fun looking at this stuff because every year around this time, if I had told you Washington was going to go 12-5 last year, you would have laughed me off the air. And right. I would have gotten, all these crazy people in my mentions telling me I don't know ball. And then they go out and they win 12 games. And the Texans did it the year before that. So, it's hard to see for some teams, but really, and that was so fun about looking at supporting casts. I mean, there aren't very many teams where I just feel like they don't have a shot. You look at, we just outlined it for the Raiders. The Tennessee Titans, we know that the impact that a number 1 overall pick can have. We just saw C.J. Stroud and Jaden Daniels do it. I mean, I know they weren't the number 1 overall pick, but you get my point.
Yeah.
And you go down the list, and I can find a reason to be optimistic about damn near everybody. And I think that it just makes it a fun time to love the NFL because – look, we know not everybody has a real shot to win the Super Bowl, but I think almost everybody in the league has a shot to really surprise people, and that's a lot of fun.
David Hellman, FoxSports.com, is with us here on Unnecessary Roughness, Raider Nation Radio 920. I was going through what Washington did last year because, again, that's the most recent one. It's pointed out to me all the time. David, they won 8 one-score games in the regular season. Normally, and you've been covering the league long enough, when that happens one year, normally you don't get those one-score wins. You don't win them consistently like that. It takes a little bit, I don't want to say luck, but it takes some good fortune for that to happen consistently.
No, you're right. And I'm not trying to bag on Washington, but you look at it and, I mean, there are things there that make you wonder if they're primed for regression. I mean, first of all, they're going to be on everybody's radar. Second of all, they play in a really tough division. You wonder, at this stage in Deebo Samuel's career, is he like the same caliber of difference maker as he used to be? Laramie Tunsil, I still think he's a really good player, but the Texans' offensive line was atrocious last year. It makes you wonder about that. I wouldn't be shocked. And that's, again, it's funny. We write all these narratives in stone based on what happened last season. And you're so right. I mean, you win a handful of one-score games. You catch the right team when one of their star players is injured, and it can completely change the trajectory of your season. And that's why, I think I did the math. People say, half the playoff field turns over every year. And since they expanded to a 7-team format, it's about 5. It's about 5 teams change out every single year. So a little less than half. But, a lot of these teams that we're so high on, odds are, for one reason or another, they're not going to make it. And it's fun trying to figure out who that could be. And I always laugh because, like I said, what happened last season, people sort of laser in on that like it's bound to happen again. And the results just don't really back that up.
For the Silver and Black, you have them ranked 13th. For the Silver and Black to make the playoffs in 2025, what, in your opinion, needs to happen?
I mean, I think I wrote it in one of those stories. I think the offensive line has to play more like it did in the second half of last season. They were much better in the home stretch than they were in the beginning. I think, like I said, I think so highly of Geno Smith. If Geno Smith is doing his thing and the offensive line is doing its job for Ashton Genty, I think the offense will take care of itself. I do think you're going to need some stars to rise up on defense. Obviously, they got pilfered a little bit in free agency on the defensive side of the ball. So I would say just consistency on offense and probably some unlooked for contributions on defense. But we've seen this enough times as well where a fantastic running game can be a defense's best friend. So really, if that offense is efficient and does a good job with possession, I think that could really open the door for a Raiders resurgence. Like I said, I don't have to think that hard about an 8 or 9 win season for the Raiders. Like I think it's on the table if they catch the right breaks.
I thought that was some really good stuff from David Hellman. And again, he points out how difficult it is to do that. It's not impossible. Like something I've been talking about, it's not impossible. It's just very difficult. And if the Raiders were in the AFC South, I'd feel a lot better than for their shot. If they're in the NFC South, I feel a lot better for their shot to make it happen, right? Than I do because they're in the AFC West. But again, like you talked about, the teams that make the playoffs the year before, 5 teams on average don't make the playoffs. So if you go through the playoff teams last year and you say, okay, what 5 do you think won't make it? That could be part of the riddle as well. And you can look at the AFC West. If you want to be honest about the situation, 3 teams from the AFC West made it. Doesn't mean all 3 are going to make it again. So if on the average 5 teams don't make it, maybe 1 or 2 of those teams that made it won't make it this upcoming year. Maybe that opens up the door for the Raiders, right? But that's the job. That's the responsibility, right? And we'll continue to talk about this on the show. I mean, why not? I think it's a real good, healthy conversation, right? But go through it. Go through it just on your own, right? And give me a call, 707-654-4693. 5 teams that made the playoffs in 2024. What 5 teams that made the playoffs in 2024, I should say, do you think won't make it this year? Like if you're just looking at them, just say, all right, you know what? I believe this team won't make it. I believe this team won't make it. Yeah, that team made it, but I can see them missing, right? I mean, again, I'm not going to hold you to it. I'm not going to judge you if you're wrong. I mean, look, we're all going to be wrong, right? I guarantee nobody's going to pick all 5 and be like, yep, those are the ones. And then it's just too difficult. There's a lot of parity in the NFL. We know that. And there are teams that can get things turned around pretty quickly. But just do that. Do that as an exercise just for S's and giggles. Find 5 teams that made the playoffs a season ago that you think, yeah, there's a good shot they don't make the playoffs in 2025. That's how we'll continue the conversation. And we'll continue to hear from you, and we'll do that next. 707-654-4693. We got segment number 3 coming up next. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts are off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. A lot of calls and texts on the mental health conversation. I'll go ahead and tell you that right now. Again, I didn't know it was going to touch as many people as it did. Got a lot of just text messages, direct messages on Twitter, feedback by way of email. I had some people call into my radio show and tell me how much they appreciated that conversation. So I'm glad that it meant so much, but I'll just let you know there's a lot of calls and texts based off that conversation. We'll start off with one from my guy, Peg Leg Raider in San Antonio. That's my brother. He's calling to talk about the conversation we had on Tuesday about mental health, how much it meant to him and means to him from a veteran's point of view. Here he is, Peg Leg Raider.
What up, Q? It's your boy Peg Leg in San Antonio. calling in to talk about Tuesday's show on mental health, and really, number one, to give you a huge shout out. Thank you for highlighting that and for, making it a part of your show and raising people's awareness and everything that you do. Thank you to my man Smooth Raider for calling in. Thank you for your service and talking about your PTSD story. And yeah, I want to share a little bit. So, I'm Peg Leg Raider. I lost my leg in Iraq. And when I was going through the recovery process, most of what they focused on was the physical injury and not kind of the mental stuff. In a lot of ways, that was more important for me to deal with. But one of the things I wanted to highlight was the fact that in the athlete community and the veteran community, a lot of times it's not okay to be not okay, and there's been a lot of stigma on getting help. So for folks who are in the Vegas area, Q, you had my man Nate Boyer on your show before talking about MVP, emerging vets and players. They have a gym right there in Vegas. So if you're a vet and maybe going to therapy is not for you, but you want to interact with people who have gone through some similar things, look up that program. They do a lot of great work. They take athletes who are transitioning out and veterans who are either still in or transitioning and put them together in like that small unit area where we can still kind of work out and just talk about things, and just getting things off your chest can mean so much. So Q, thank you for all you do. Smooth Raider, Vegas Chess, and all the other veterans out there, thank you for your service. And it is okay to be not okay. That's what I got. Peg Leg Raider out.
Peg Leg, thanks so much for the call. It's all love from me to you and the family for sure. Right? Peg Leg Raider is a guy that I've met, I've hung out with, was in Canton, Ohio. Tom Flores actually autographed his leg. His prosthetic, right? I mean, he was able to do that. That's awesome. But great dude. Thank you for your service. As I've always said, I never shy away from veterans, never shy away from recognizing Memorial Day or 4th of July. And honestly, I should do a bit better job than that, than more than just those days. But definitely appreciate you and the fam as always. Great nugget on MVP and Nate Boyer and what he's doing here in Las Vegas. And he just had a big banquet not too long ago. My guy Ryan Hogue went to that. Again, just kind of raising money for MVP and doing a lot for veterans out there. So, all those that are trying to get reacclimated after service, it's not easy. I've heard the stories, and that's the only reason I know the knowledge is because I've heard the stories and I've listened. So, again, thank you for your service. Always appreciate you, my man. It's great to hear from you. Up next, got a text from the 314. It's no name on it, but he says, Q, thank you for the show on mental health. I haven't heard from my niece in a long time. She's a veteran and still struggling with the loss of her mom, who is my sister. I reached out to her today because of your show. Thank you for the reminder of how important family and human contact and kindness is. That's a text from 314. It had no name, but I don't need to say anything else, right? Thank you. I hope that, at this point, you've heard back from your sister or from your niece, excuse me. I hope that you've heard from her. That's a big deal. It really is. But I'm glad that you passed that message along. And again, just like I've been saying, I'm so glad that the conversation about the mental health really went a long way with Raider Nation. Up next, got a call from Joe in Phoenix. He's calling to talk about the last time he was at Allegiant and the next time he'll be at Allegiant and what could happen for the first time at Allegiant. Yeah, that's a lot there, right? Here's Joe in Phoenix.
Hey, Q. This is Joe out in Phoenix, Arizona. Just wanted to call and say what's up to you and Raider Nation. Just let you know, Q, that I'm hoping for some first time of beating the Kansas City Chiefs at home, man. So back in 2024, the last game of the season, Broncos against the Raiders at home. That's the time I got to meet you at the Allegiant Stadium. I forgot the course landing or whatever. Well, anyways, this time I get to go again for the last game of the season against the Chiefs. So I'm hoping to pull up there and say what's up to you, man, and hopefully get a signature from Eric Allen. Last time he signed my flag, that on his marker, man, that thing was gone. So you could barely see it. So I'm gonna go back and get my run back from the superstar. You know what I mean? Well, anyways, Q, just wanted to chime in and say hello to you, the nation. And once again, man, I'll see you last game of the season against the Chiefs, man. Hopefully we get that victory. Peace.
Big Joe, thanks for the call. How exciting is that you're going to be there for the last game of the 2025 season at Allegiant Stadium? And I know some people will be like, wait, why is that a big deal? It's the last game of the season. Well, because it's against Kansas City, as he mentioned. The Chiefs have never lost at Allegiant. The Raiders have never beat the Chiefs at Allegiant. The Chiefs have never lost at Allegiant, as they won the Super Bowl there as well. So they feel great about rolling into Vegas, into the 702, and going to Allegiant Stadium. Could you imagine being there week 18? The game means everything, or maybe it means nothing, but still having that juice and that energy, that knowing, hey, this could be the one. This could be the game where the Raiders finally knock off the Chiefs in Allegiant Stadium, get their first victory at home versus Kansas City. That would be something I'd be excited about. And hopefully, it's a game like it was in 2021 against the Chargers, where it's coming down to the wire and it means everything. That would be even better. What a celebration that would be. So just like I met you at the Torch on Coors Light Landing before, love to meet you there again. EA, Eric Allen, he'll definitely sign whatever you have for him. He's a great dude. He signs everybody's pictures, takes pictures with everyone. I mean, dude's just A1 since day one. So I guarantee that he'll have no problem doing that for you as well. But Big Joe, thanks so much for that call. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Brian in the 570. Hey, Q. Brian from the 570 wanted to shout you out for always talking about the importance of mental health, as that's something I've had trouble with on and off and over the last year and a half. I know you talked about how you didn't realize that you were an essential worker during COVID, but football and football banter helps so many of us get out of our head, man. I lost my brother due to cancer back in 2023. I'll never forget driving up to Boston when I got the call that he needed me. It was Halloween 2023. That's the day that Josh McDaniels got fired, and just having that to distract me helped more than I could put into words. My brother was a big-time Eagles fan, and the last game we watched together in the hospital was the Eagles-Cowboys, and the Eagles won in a really exciting game. I know it's just a game, but it can mean so much more. Having the daily distraction of Raiders football really helps me get through some tough times. And hearing you and some of the regular callers means a lot. Sorry for the long text, but I just want to say thanks again for everything you do, Q. Go Raiders. That's Brian in the 570. Great testimonial. Great testimonial. I still remember that Halloween night in 2023 when Josh McDaniels got fired. I was on the radio, on ESPN radio, doing game night, and we were about to get into some conversation that had nothing to do with the Raiders, obviously. That whole hour, it was 10 p.m. Pacific time. Was it 10 p.m. or 9? No, I think it was 9. Was it 9? Yeah, it was 9 because I got off the air at 10 p.m. Pacific time. So it was 9 o'clock. That whole 9 to 10 p.m. hour was all based off the Raiders, Josh McDaniels. We had Vinny Bonsignore on the show. It was wild because it just came out of nowhere, right? Just didn't know that it was going to happen. It was later in the night, and then boom, it just hit just like that. So thank you, though, for that testimony. Really good stuff. And, again, it means a lot to understand what means a lot, right? And sometimes you don't know until you hear it. And so I just like to know that sometimes from people's perspective that hears the show on the daily or whatever the case may be, that, hey, this helps me and this is why. That means a lot more than, the show being, one of the top shows on the network or this. Look, I just care about the interaction, and I care about what it means to everybody who takes it in on the daily. So really good stuff, man. Definitely appreciate you. Speaking of really good stuff, this is a call from Raider Big C in LA that's not even really meant for the show, but I feel like that this is a call that could inspire someone else. And so, he's talking about the mental health conversation as well. He's talking about inspiration and the inspiration that he's received even from this show. But again, it's not about me. It's not about this show. It's about what hopefully someone will hear right now and take away and maybe inspire them to do great things as well. Here's Raider Big C in LA.
Hey, Q. It's Raider Big C from LA. Just wanted to call in and just want to say appreciation post here for you. It's crazy you talked about on June 3rd episode about mental health and just showing everything appreciation. I'm going to give this call yesterday, but I was a little busy. Today, June 4th, is my birthday. Your podcast has given me a lot of hope since I first got introduced to you way back in the Black Hole Banter days. And when that was long gone, you announced that you're Locked On Raiders, and it was back in 2019. And in 2019, I lost my mom. And then, you lost your son back in 2020. But during that time frame, that fall season, I was, trying to figure out life and, losing your Your mom is a big thing, and your podcast got me through it. You're the reason why I got up every day and listened, motivate myself to go to work. Even though the Raiders are having a so-so season that season, but you still got me through it. And to this day, I've not missed one of your podcasts. I've been fortunate enough to meet you in person. You're such a great man on a couple occasions. More importantly, your wisdom, your saying, you guarantee to Mr. Shy if you don't take it. I've taken that and thrive with it so much in my everyday life and in with the job that I work with people who need a little more inspiration. So this is not going to be Raiders related. I will say something in the end, but I just wanted to show my appreciation to you. I was going to make this call yesterday before your podcast, but I just find out wow, that's just the irony there, talk about whatever you want to say, but thank you. You truly give everyone on this platform an opportunity to say what's in their mind. You hate them, you love them, whatever. We're like family. So from the bottom of my heart, for everything you've done for the Raider Nation and just seeing you prosper so much from the days back in Cali to Texas to now. Thank you, thank you, thank you. On that note, the Raiders are going to have a great season. They're going to surprise some people. And I'm just looking forward for some Raiders football within the next less than 100 days. Because you know why? We, Raider Nation, win, lose, or tie, Raiders till I die. Raiders! Raider Big C from LA. Out.
First of all, happy belated birthday, right? And again, it's funny how things just tie together. And like you say, man, it's funny that you're talking about it this day. And I was right before my birthday. And, again, it all comes together. But hearing that the show is an inspiration for you and it's inspired you to go and do some things that maybe, outside of the box that you wouldn't have done without is fantastic. And I'm hoping that testimony from you is going to lead to someone else doing what they, feel like they need to do, or maybe give them the extra energy or push to go and do something as well. Again, like Elandon Roberts said in the first hour, it's all about right now. It's all about right now. Do what you can do, right? I mean, today is what matters. So go and make it happen. Whatever it is that you feel like you've been pushing off and I'll do it later. Don't wait till later. Do it now. Do it now. And if you fail once, it's all right. Try it again. If you fail again, try it again. You fail again, try it again, right? Make a plan. Figure it out how you're going to do it, but just put your nose down, grind, work really hard. You don't have to cheat. You don't have to do anything, cut corners. You don't do any of that, right? All you have to do, hard work never fails. That's the one thing I've learned in life. Hard work never fails. And I've never seen someone who works their tail off that's failed. I've never witnessed it. I've also never seen anyone that just sits around and waits for something to come to them be successful. So, I'm glad that you've been inspired by what we do here on the daily, on the Locked On Raiders podcast, and continue to inspire others because that's what it's all about. So we'll close out with a text from Just Win Will. Pretty good lengthy text here as well. Q, Ari, good day to y'all. Just Win Will here. It's been a minute since I've chimed in. I've been mostly in lockstep with your takes, so there's been no need to. LOL. But I'd like to scatter shoot some things I'd like either clarity, confirmation, or understanding on, please and thank you. First off, we as a nation have to remember that we're playing a fourth-place schedule this year. So if this current team is any bit better than last year's squad that earned this schedule, we should at least double our wins from last year. So that puts us at 8 wins you've been consistent on. Then if we win a few of those coin flip games, that should push us to 10 or 11 range. So Tadrees from New Jersey isn't that far off base with their prediction. I'll even double down and say that the Week 18 game versus KC will be for the division. Ooh, book it. Second, Q, I totally agree with you that the Black Friday game should be a Raiders home game every year, but my guy, selfishly, I have to wish and pray against it. I'm a delivery driver, and Black Friday is like work Christmas. It's like a work Christmas day to get to the paper all day. I don't miss Raider games, but I never miss on getting paper for my family. So Raiders Black Friday game is a no-go for me. With all due respect, my guy, LOL, okay, I'm done. Much love to the nation. Much love to you, Q, and you, Ari, for providing content and giving the nation a platform and a voice. So thanks, and go Raiders. That's from Just Win Will. Thanks so much for that. I appreciate you. Oh, trust and believe. I understand. I understand when it comes to the delivery guys, right? I know all about that, man. I was a FedEx guy, delivery guy for over a year. I understand exactly what it's all about. I know that's that get that paper, right? That's that get that day for you. You got to go get that money. It's also, man, what a headache, what a battle, right? That's a rough one. So I get it. As far as the win total, yeah, double it, get to 8 wins where I have been consistent, and if you do win some of the 50-50 games and even a game or two that you aren't expected to win, yeah, you're sitting there at 10 and 11, 10, 11 wins. There's no doubt about that. I just don't want to sit there and act like that's what I expect, right? I rather expect 8 and then end up with 10 and say, hey, man, I undersold them. Right? These guys, they overachieved, or they were better than I expected them to be. I'd rather that be the case than me say, yeah, I expect this team to go and win 11, 12 games, make a deep run in the playoffs, and then they barely sniff 8. It's like, well, what are we talking about? What are we seeing? So I rather under-deliver, and I'd rather undersell and then over-deliver, I should say, as opposed to the other way around, if that makes sense. So Just Win Will, thanks so much for the text. Appreciate you. Really good stuff. It's great to hear from you. So that's all we got time for on today's show. But do me a favor. Let me know. 707-654-4693. Going back to what David Hellman had to say, find 5 teams that made the playoffs in 2024 that you think have a shot at missing the playoffs in 2025, because that could be 5 openings for the Silver and Black. Just saying. I'll slide them in like that. Let me know your thoughts. 707-654-4693. Of course, we'll be back tomorrow. We'll have more news and notes. We'll have plenty of calls and texts. We'll have plenty of conversation, and that could be really where we start the conversation coming up on tomorrow as we close out the week. So until then, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.